Today, we have relationship advice, just in case you need it. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, welcome to City Corner. And I'd like to welcome back Kniffen. She is a relationship counselor, and she's been on a couple times with me before. Hi, Christine, welcome.
Hi, listen, thanks for having me back, Steve.
I always think of you around Valentine's Day for obvious reasons. Relationships. Can you define, what's the definition of a relationship?
Well, I would say relationships run the gamut. I always like to focus on what a good relationship is.
Oh, how many of those are there?
Well, you may have even asked me that before. Something makes me think you may be a doubting Thomas.
Yeah, you can tell, can't you?
But I think there's lots of good relationships, and a lot of people come in, you know, for couples counseling and marriage counseling because it's not always that the relationship's in tatters. Sometimes they just want to improve it. And it's usually, it goes back to the really simple thing that's not rocket science. It's the communication's not happening.
Well, you're a licensed clinical social worker. Give us a little resume of your background and who you are.
Well, so I'm Kniffen. I've probably been doing this about 20 years. You know, I'm a generalized therapist, so a practitioner, so I work with people on all types of things, you know, mental health issues, addiction issues, loss and grief, but marriage and couples counseling and relationships are my favorite thing.
I would think there'd be a tie between relationships and mental health issues.
Well, there might be. I mean, listen, when people break up, there's nothing that gets, you know, that really is emotionally, there's a lot of emotional upheaval when people break up. And so that sends really about 80% of the people into a therapist's office when relationships end. Well,
another Valentine's Day has just passed, and that's when everybody really focuses on relationships. I've always wondered, do we focus too much on them sometimes? There seems to be a lot of pressure, Christine.
I think the focus is only when it's not a good one. You know, a lot of times people are good people, but they're just not a good fit. There's not an ease of compatibility, and it's not about, you know, and the onus is on us not to stay in something and blame the other person for not giving us what we need. It's to figure out who you are, calmly and assertively say, I know I need this. I know myself well enough. And if you don't get it or don't get help or participation in making it better, eventually you have to go. A lot of people find themselves stuck right there for long periods of time. They just, because somebody's not a bad person, you know, leaving because it's not enough versus you're being treated badly, that's one of the hardest things that people can do. And a lot of people come into my office and go, I don't know if I want to stay or go. I feel stuck. I don't know what's happening. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of that.
What about this time of year with Valentine's Day? Do you as a therapist see more turmoil? It seems like there's more pressure on people just because relationships are so emphasized around this time of year. Do you see that?
Yes, and I've talked before about this, and what I think people do is, you know, they need to be doing these kind gestures and things throughout the year. I think what they do is they put too much pressure on, you know, Valentine's Day to almost be a makeup day for what hasn't been going on the rest of the year. And I always say to people, you know, who are you with? Because I think it's our nature a little bit to sort of give to somebody in a way we want to get back versus asking who you are. You know, I might want to give you a big fancy dinner out because that would say something that would be meaningful to me on Valentine's Day. Maybe you just want to stay home and have a quiet home-cooked meal. So who is the person you're with and what would make them happy? I think that's, you know, that seems like it's obvious, but doesn't always go that way.
I was listening to some music radio station the other day, and they're having a big debate and call-in about Valentine's Day, and they're getting this whole thing about if you're going to break up with someone, do you break up with them before Valentine's Day, or should you wait till after? And you would believe how many people had an opinion about that.
Well, I think that's just like, you know, now's not the right time to break up with somebody. I'm like, there is no good time. You know what I mean? There is no time. I think it's almost more hurtful to somebody. You go do some big gesture for her and then you break up with her the next day. It's going to be doubly insulting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think you should maybe do it beforehand.
What do you think about expectations about having relationships in general? You know, we're born, we grow up, most of us have two parents, or even if you don't have two parents, you're aware of adult relationships and things, and we have expectations, and what we see on TV, it seems like something's wrong with you if you're not in a committed relationship. So is that good thing?
I think expectations are a problem in two ways. And I think it's a lot about how we grew up, because whether we like it or not, what we witness between our parents is our main, our primary place where we get a vision of what a relationship is. And, we can have too few expectations and people find themselves putting up with, poor behavior or less than they should. Or people can have too high of expectations, yes, where nobody fits the bill and nobody's going to be okay. I think the expectation should come from knowing yourself well enough to say what I know I need. For example, I'm a touchy-feely person. Now, if I go get with someone who's not touchy-feely, I'm going to sort of feel rejected all the time. But that doesn't mean he's wrong. That means if two people who aren't touchy-feely get together, nobody's upset. It means you have to know yourself well enough to kind of insist upon what you need. So I don't know that I think of it like expectations in that way. I think we need to know who we are by looking back at some of our past relationships. And that usually starts with, I'll take the opposite of what went wrong. And we need to figure ourselves out and understand what we really need to feel happy, because it's always unmet needs that make people unhappy in relationships.
From what you said just then, it makes me think that we'd be better off to put off relationships when we're young. You're talking about knowing who you are and being comfortable with yourself. But isn't this right? So many people, like in grade school, have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they're a relationship constantly. Would it be better if we were independent till a certain time, much older?
Well, I tell you what, I think it's better if people wait a little later to get married. And what I mean by that is I've had a series of young gals over the years, maybe in their late 20s, who'd been dating somebody who was their boyfriend in high school the whole time. And they, then suddenly it just doesn't seem like enough, yet they're so guilty, and they just, is this the right one, isn't it? I think the way we understand ourselves and we know what we need is we get some experience under our belt. I know there's the people that stand up in the shows, on the shows, and go, we were childhood sweethearts and we got married. That does happen, but I wouldn't say that that's the preponderance of people. And so I think when people, they feel bad about relationships that don't work, but to me that's a learning experience. You're learning, okay, well that didn't work. I know I need somebody who's only a social drinker, not a problem drinker. I know I need somebody who likes to hug and do that instead of always asking for it and feeling rejected or I'm begging for something. I think you learn and figure out who yourself are through relationships and your feelings about what's missing. So I think you have a lot of time to gather, but when when you get together at 19, it's hard to kind of know what you want, because it's just like we're in love, there's chemistry, I'm attracted to you. You haven't gathered all that sort of intellectual stuff about your needs.
I guess you don't agree with me. I was thinking maybe the best thing would be to not date and have no relationships till like you're 20 and then start. Wouldn't you be totally independent then and you wouldn't need anybody?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it could go either way. It could probably go either way.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, it could.
You don't think that's crazy?
No, I don't think it's crazy, but I mean, I'm sure there are people that don't date people through high school, and there are people that do. And it's really all about that you're understanding yourself. I mean, the only reason people don't have what they want is because they're like getting off the path on something that's not working, and they hang out there too long. And then they don't want to go, they feel guilty. One of the hardest things you have to do, like I said, is leave because it's not enough versus it's bad. And so then there's a lot of guilt, it's hard to go, the years are wasting. It's more that. It's being brave enough. We don't need a relationship, we want a relationship, and when we need it, we're not going to have the strength to go, I love you, but if we can't make these changes, it's not that anything's wrong with you, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I was just wondering, maybe I overthink things.
Perhaps.
That's fun though sometimes. But I thought, do we really, are relationships a good thing to have? Do we really need them? Do we just have relationships because it's a societal norm that we just accept? There are a lot of those that I think aren't legitimate. We just do it because we're taught to do it.
No, I think sort of coupling up is the normal way.
The only thing that's flaw in my plan is when I think about raising kids.
Yes.
Kids need some sort of adult thing. So that the relationship with children makes sense.
It's not that anything's wrong, but the point is people, you grow. And if you're into like, you know, growth as a personal hobby like myself and many people, you grow through relationships because when you get in them, those differences, the only way you navigate the differences, you know, is that you find something in the middle, and then getting to the middle makes each person grow and stretch a little bit. Yeah, I got to plan everything. Okay, maybe I can, and you fly by the seat of your pants too much. We ended up on the camping trip and there was no mustard with the hot dogs, right? So there's a time and place by fly by the seat of your pants, and there's a time and place to plan. There you go. But what I'm saying is, relationships cause people to grow when they're the right ones. And that makes us grow and stretch as people, and that's always good. And that growing together is what makes a relationship strong and hold together.
Well, in your experience as a relationship counselor, or coach, have you never, ever had a client where you thought, you shouldn't have one?
No, it's more, no, it's usually if it's a couple and I might think to myself, you know, you're two good people, but you're not a good fit. There's a lot of times people are good people. It's not that anybody's a bad person. They're just not, there's not a natural ease of their fit together. I mean, you say things and like all your friends go, yeah, I get that. And the person you're with is like, what are you talking about? You know, a lot of times that might be that you're not as emotionally evolved at the same level as the other person, but it's just, you know, if somebody by nature isn't huggy touchy, maybe they're never going to change that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I should then own that I need that. Instead of telling you what's wrong with you, I should go, I love you, but this isn't enough. I don't think people can change fundamental things about themselves. I think we change and compromise on some things.
And does that always make us a better person?
I always think growing and stretching makes people better people.
You kind of smiled when you said that, but.
Well, oh yeah, I think it's great. I think people force us to grow. I think we learn to find our voice. I think we learn to get better and braver at saying, you know, that hurt my feelings, instead of just getting mad at somebody, because that's not a fair reaction. Your feelings are hurt or you're afraid is why you got mad. You didn't get mad at something that was said or happened because you felt good. Something happened, and all people do is they just get mad and they don't ever grow to any other level. The best articulation of your voice is to calm down and go, you know what, I think the reason I got upset earlier is because when you did this, it made me feel like I wasn't important or in the process.
This reminds me of something you said on one of the times you were on the show before in the past about the way you feel. There's kind of this fine line about, you know, you hurt my feelings. There's a fine line between you're accusing someone of doing it or that's just how I feel without blame.
Yes, and that's the hard part. That's what I have to work with couples on. That's the hardest thing for couples. It's to hear the other person and don't go, well, what is that saying about me that you said that? And go, how do you feel? But remember, I'm going to hear you if you don't deliver in an anger, heightened tension, and frustration. If you come back and get out of the moment and go, I got a little, I call it emotionally hijacked. People can call it triggered. I got that way earlier because when you said that, and you know, you just did this and you didn't talk to me, it kind of made me feel like we weren't a couple, or I wasn't taken into consideration and it hurt my feelings. Now, if somebody's going to get mad when I go, it hurt my feelings, I'm going to get mad about that. But if I go, I can't believe you did that, well, you don't think you've done anything wrong, so you're not going to give me any validation. I mean, this is the hardest thing couples do, and it's about being able to validate your own feelings. I don't have to either cry because no one's going to hear me and I'm afraid to talk, or get angry. I can go, you know, my favorite line is, I'm not saying you've done anything wrong, and I'm not saying everybody would feel this way, but I want you to know it hurt my feelings. Well, see, that's vulnerable and risky, because what if you go, who cares? Well, then I tell people that's another session, and we'll talk about that another time.
Something to think about.
Yep.
Well, I know our viewers don't need any relationship advice, but we'll be back with some after this on City Corner.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods nestled into 108 city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and of course, the beautiful Tower Grove Park where I'm at now. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We've got the St. Louis Surge, two-time WBCBL champions. We've got Harris Stowe, WashU, St. Louis University, and of course, the 11-time World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals. So come experience St. Louis.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination. But don't just imagine. Use STEM to change the world.
Who's with me?
Oh, it's gonna hurt back tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
I'm Steve Potter, and welcome back to City Corner. Well, I hope you survived Valentine's Day, and I'm sure you all have perfect relationships with no problems. I'm trying not to laugh. My guest today is licensed clinical social worker Christine Kniffen, and part of her private practice is helping people in relationships.
Yep.
And you've been doing something like 20 years, I think you said.
Yes, I've been in this about 20 years.
Does anyone ever walk into your office and after you get to know them and hear what they're talking about that surprises or shocks you anymore? Or have you heard it all?
You know, I don't really feel surprised or shocked at all.
Never?
No, not anymore. I feel like I've just heard most things.
Really?
I mean, we've had affairs, we've had blah, blah, blah. No, I feel that I've yet, now, it doesn't mean one won't come, but no, I can't say that I feel shocked or surprised. What you notice in relationships is you just see the patterns over and over and over. You know, like, you know, people are not connected. You know, one doesn't want sex, one wants sex. I mean, there's a fight about that. Like, I don't even want to hug him because it's going to lead to sex. And then, you know, he's rejected because she won't even hug. No, you just see the patterns over and over. There's only kind of a few ways people feel and then they sort of behave about it.
Is it ever one person's fault?
Never. No. Some people come in with they've done something more egregious. I mean, if you've had an affair, that's unfortunately going to get an inordinate amount of time in the beginning of the sessions
right.
to be working on trust in that. But no, rarely. I always like to say, short of bank robbery, murder, there isn't too much right or wrong. No, both people are contributing to the dynamics of the communication not happening. Yeah.
Early on in relationships, our expectations, would that be one of the major problems? That the expectations we have maybe aren't reasonable because, I don't know, in our own head we're thinking what our version of perfect happiness is or whatever it is, and is that not a
Yes,
good thing?
I think some people suffer from, you know, watching the movies and reading the romance novels, absolutely. I think that definitely is in there. And I think the other expectation and the biggest problem is, why aren't you a mind reader? You know, that's the one we have a lot. If you love me, you would know.
Yeah.
No, it sounds good, but no, I said that creates a lot of problems in relationships.
And one thing I'd like your thought on too, you've heard the expression, do opposites attract. Sometimes I wonder, you know, there are some things you really need to be on the same page with in a relationship.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it's good if you're different in some areas.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. I believe it's the core values. If you're about honesty, you know, you're not going to be with some shyster trying to sell somebody a used car and laughing how funny it is. And I'm like, that's not funny. And so when your core values, I think your core values have to be similar enough. The differences, though, are important. People think the differences are the problem. Differences will either send you to divorce court or you'll learn to work it out, grow, and bridge them because you want the differences. Because if there's no differences, you would have no bumps and you would have nothing to talk about and grow and learn and understand each other and come to resolve. So I think a relationship without differences is not actually a good thing. And I just don't think it's realistic that you would ever find that. Mm-hmm. Because people aren't the same. You might think, oh, we sort of grew up the same, we have the same political view, we yada yada. I'm like, look, you are not the same. Your families maybe didn't put the same, you know, emphasis on certain things. You might have different sensitivities to like how wrong something is versus how wrong you think it is. So people really aren't that alike as they think.
I'm thinking about the psychology too. You know how are we too hard on ourselves sometimes? Because you know how people, you know, casually may put on the facade that their relationship is perfect or act like it. So if I'm looking for a relationship and I have my issues, and my friend Christine always has this, she's always so happy and talks about this perfect relationship, and it just makes me feel worse. That dynamic happens a lot, doesn't it? And is the other person faking?
No, some people feel great, but some people just don't share how bad things are. You've seen those couples, suddenly they break up and everyone is shocked.
They were the perfect couple.
Oh, they were the perfect couple, but you don't know what's going on. You don't know. Just, you know, a lot of people don't want to fight in public and show things like that. That doesn't mean it's perfect. You're just not seeing it displayed in public. Everybody has bumps and has disagreements, right? Everybody, I call it a little pepper. We're going to have a little pepper once in a while. And the idea is that you can come back and explain yourselves to each other, realize nobody did anything intentionally, and go, is there anything to do differently next time, or was it just that we needed to hear each other about where we were coming from?
One thing that's always made me wonder, and maybe you have some insight to it, is people that break up, they've been together 20 years, 30 years. You know, I understand a year or two and that they have turmoil, but then when I hear about these long relationships breaking up, I think, you made it this long. What? You made it this long. Did it have to end now? I don't understand that.
I think there's a couple reasons that happen. I actually can see that a lot when it's the time the kids go off to college and we have the empty nest syndrome, and then you look over and go, oh, is this all that's left between us? What happens is people have to be connected, and the connection and the glue there's two arenas to connect. There's a physical arena, from hand-holding to love-making, and there's the emotional communication arena of being vulnerable and sharing. Like, being vulnerable means not getting mad and going, I can't believe you did that. Being vulnerable is like saying, that really hurt my feelings when you did that, calmly, like I'm just telling you about me, because intimacy is learning each other. When people don't have that connectivity, they're not happy. That's what makes people feel secure. You have my back, I have no interest in going anywhere, I'm satisfied. And what happens a lot of times is people get married, they get the kids, they focus on the kids. That was never there to begin with. And suddenly when there's nothing else to focus on, it's so obvious that that's missing. And people go, there must be more. And I'm like, there is more. And sometimes they're just unhappy. Sometimes they meet somebody at the office who suddenly can understand them in a way that my husband couldn't. You know, you have that kind of thing too, but they're not connected enough. And that's when affairs happen. That's when all kinds of things happen.
You mentioned intimacy. And you wonder how much intimacy, SEX, has to...
Well, that's one version of intimacy. So is communication, sharing.
All right. Okay, well, I'm talking about the SEX part.
Yes.
How important that really is a relationship. Where I'm coming from on that is, I know people have been together for years and years, and they have a very active, intimate life. And I know other people that have been together years and years and don't have an intimate life at all, and it's just fine for them and it works.
Yes.
So there's all kind of variation, right?
There's all kinds of variation. I think that's about, when I work with clients, I say, look, there's two arenas to connect, to feel close and connected. There's the emotional communication arena, the sharing, the being vulnerable, the understanding each other with compassion. And then there's the physical arena, from the hand-holding to the love-making. I sit the couple down and I say, look, each of you, in a world where there's a finite amount, there's only 100% energy to put in those two arenas, how would you divvy it up to be close and connected? I honestly might say 30% physical and 70 talking. You know, people don't like to admit that. They're like, oh, 50-50. You know, they don't really like to say. And then, but you might sometimes get a partner who has the direct opposite. And it's important that you have that conversation, because what happens, and I don't want to sound, you know, overgeneralizing with the sexes, but what you find sometimes, and often with the couples, is there's a big standoff. The woman's like, we don't share, we don't talk. And a lot of times women don't want to be close. We don't want to be physical if we don't feel like you're sharing or talking. But the poor guy's like, but I want to be close to you. I want to be physical. And then the woman's like, he just wants to have sex. I'm like, no, he just wants to connect. And to talk and understand that who you're with. You know, women, we don't, and you know, there's a whole range of physical connection. There's the snuggling on the couch, there's the hand holding, there's the spooning. It doesn't, and so some people can be maybe satisfied with a lot of that, and I'm not here to say that's right or wrong. It's really about how each of you feel together.
I've got to be on the same page.
But people are not happy if they're not getting anything in those realms.
You know, just to bring this up, you mentioned men and women. What about same-sex couples? Are all their issues just the same? Does that make any difference at all as far as issues in a relationship?
I see the exact same issues. You know, you don't initiate. Well, I do, but you don't want it. But you never initiate. I mean, it's all the same stuff. It's really basically all the same stuff.
I told you this one story last time you were here. I don't know if you remember it or not. When I was like 30, it was a long time ago. I moved in with my 95-year-old grandmother because I came to St. Louis to find a job. And her husband, my grandfather, died the year my parents were married, so I never met him. Mm-hmm. And she lived to be 103, so she lived like 50 years after he died or something like that. And I remember asking her once, when I was in my 30s and still thinking everyone's supposed to have a relationship, I said, Mimi, you never, after Daddy Elmer died, you never got married or even dated as far. Didn't you ever want a relationship? Because I thought this is odd and unusual. And she was adamant. She said, no, he's the only man for me. I'm just fine.
But see, a lot of people are. And the real question is, if you're fine, you're fine. If you're just, you know, it's too hard or there's nobody out there, then I say, well, maybe you're not really fine and you might be missing out. But if you really feel fine, then you feel fine. My grandma lived to 100, almost 104, and her husband, my grandpa, died when she was 60, and she was never interested. But I mean, I don't think she was really interested. I don't think it was like, I really want something. I'm happier coupled up. It just makes me happy. I want a buddy to run through life with.
And when we were talking about like dating young and stuff, could part of the problem with unsuccessful marriages be the pressure that's put on some people early to have a relationship? There are some people that think they got to be married by 20. And you know, just the societal pressure, family pressure, makes them rush into a relationship with someone too soon and they don't know them well enough?
Well, I certainly think that's there, but I think that probably existed a little bit more earlier because I think a lot of women and stuff are waiting to their 30s now. I think it's more the problem of people haven't figured out what they want. So then when you just go get into marriage, if you don't really know what you want, then you haven't really queried for what you want. So the odds of it working aren't that great. And the difference is people no longer will stay in something because it looks so bad from a societal standpoint to get divorced. They're not going to be in something where they're unhappy. They won't do it anymore.
And maybe this has occurred to me, maybe they should come see a relationship coach like you before they get married, not after.
Well, listen, I work with single men and women all the time, and they plop down and say, I haven't been making great choices, help me do something better.
Before I run out of time, I know there's a couple things I want to hit on, one at least. The coronavirus.
Yes.
You should be concerned more than just for medical reasons.
What do you mean?
Well, you were saying something about how the coronavirus is affecting relationships, or?
Oh, no, you misunderstood me. I said it might affect cruise ship business. That's what I was saying.
But there are relationships on cruise ships.
Yes, there are. I used to watch The Love Boat. I might be dating myself, but yes, I used to. That's funny.
So do you have anything, just general advice that you give people? If someone was just asked, what's the one best thing I should keep in mind to guide my relationship successfully?
The thing to keep in mind is it's not really rocket science. When I explain what's necessary, the hard part is that you insist upon it and do it for yourself. It's that you know who you are and you make a wants and needs list. Therefore, you know what you need. Needs are the deal breakers. But that you've got to be brave enough to go, wow, those big ones are missing. I'm going to talk to him or her about, you know, that I need that. Is there any change that can take place or not? And if it doesn't, you have to be brave enough to go, I know I deserve something. There's something out there. I'm not going to stay because I'm too afraid there's no one. That's what gets in the way of people having good relationships.
Christine, we have your contact information. Why would someone want to contact you? And here it is.
Why would they or why wouldn't they? People contact me for, like I said, couples and marriage counseling. But the main reason they contact me is I write a relationship column every month in The Healthy Planet, and they read what I write about relationships.
Love the Healthy Planet magazine. It's available online at something like 500 locations around town, too. Christine Kniffen, thank you so much for helping us through this.
It was great to see you.
Difficult time of relationships, and maybe we're all better off. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
Be happy in the new year.
You too.
I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for watching, and join us next time on City Corner.